Hello everyone, the Instant Camera Guy here, and welcome to the new year, the first video of 2025. And I have a gift for you. Last year I did a video diving deep all into the different types of motors that are used inside SX-70s, and I showed you guys where you could buy a brand new replacement motor, which is a little motor known as the FK-130SH-16140, made by a company called Mabuchi. Catchy name, isn't it? And this was a type of motor that I found to be a very, very good drop-in replacement for SX-70 cameras. One of the interesting things I found about this motor is that this motor is described as being a 14,000 RPM motor. And I think that 14,000 RPM happens at about 7 volts or so. The original motor inside an SX-70, according to the Eames information video, is designed to operate at about 12,000 RPM. So even at 6 volts, this motor, according to the spec sheet, should operate at around 12,000 RPM. So basically, the more volts you give a DC motor, the faster it's going to spin. So 6 volts, it should spin at the recommended speed. But I'm not entirely sure whether or not that 12,000 RPM is accurate, or whether these motors are slightly under-spec'd, because these motors, although being excellent replacements and possibly a better replacement than the original, which for reasons I'll get into in just a second, these motors certainly run a little bit slower. So this is a camera that I have converted to new PCB. It's got the SX-70R PCB, it's got the PolaVolt lithium-ion battery mods, so really good, powerful batteries. It's got one of these brand new 16140 motors in there, and you guys can hear it just sounds like it takes ever so slightly longer to eject, and I believe that's because, for whatever reason, these motors are just slightly slower by 1,000 RPM or so than the original. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. A slightly slower motor means that there will be less stress on the gears. One of the common issues in SX-70 cameras is the gear train along the side of the body here. You know, the plastic in those gears is 50 years old. And when you have to do a cold start from basically 0 to 10,000, 12,000, 14,000 RPM or whatever it might be, it does put a lot of stress and pressure on the plastic. And so the slower a motor turns, the less stress there'll be for the gears. So theoretically, having a motor that's slightly underclocked is actually good for the longevity of the camera. And in each of the ones that I've converted using these motors, I've never had an issue. The other thing is that running slightly slower does make the camera quieter. You guys can probably hear the difference. I'm just going to grab another camera from down the bottom that I'm working on here. This is just an SLR 680. See how much louder it is compared to this one? Right? So yeah, for the most part, these have been the motors that I've been recommending. Again, that number is FK-130SH-16140, made by Mabuchi. But I have found a faster one. Allow me to introduce you to the SFF-130SHV-2657. Now, this particular motor that I have here ends with -R. I don't know what that stands for, but if you put the -R, it seems to not come up in any searches, so just ignore the little -R. The number you need is SFF-130SHV-2657. These run at about 20,000 RPM. At least that's what they're rated for, and boy oh boy, are they powerful. I have a little battery box here with 4 AA's in it, so this is about 6 volts. I'm going to turn it on, and we'll hear the difference. I'm just going to hook up the leads directly to the motor. Can you guys even hear that? It's so quiet. Now let's compare it to, yeah, there we go, to the 20,000 RPM. My goodness. Way faster. So, if you really want the fastest possible ejection on an SX-70, and, you know, maybe you're willing to live with the fact that in theory the extra speed could put a bit of extra stress and pressure on the gears, well, this is another option that you could go for. What I'm going to do now is just wire this up into my own personal SX-70 so that I can show you the difference between the two. Like I said, both of these motors work completely fine in terms of replacements for an SX-70. The only thing that I will note, I did this in a client's camera. I installed the new one, and it seemed that this motor is so powerful that the DC ripple noise actually caused mid-cycle shutdown on the original camera's PCB. With the modern SX-70R replacements, not a problem because they're all digital, but the analog PCB didn't like this very much, but I was able to fix that by using a smoothing capacitor across positive and negative voltage. So just bear that in mind, that you might need a capacitor to smooth ripple noise if you decide to use one of these 20,000 RPM motors. But yeah, let's install this and I'll come back and show you the results. Alright, after a little bit of tinkering, we have here on the left a client's camera, which I have just recently finished refurbishing. That has the 16140 motor in it, the 14,000 RPM motor. The camera on the right is my own personal SX-70. It is also modified with the SX-70R PCB. It has the exact same PolaVolt, both outputting the same voltage. The only difference is this one has the 20,000 RPM motor in it. I have put in a single pack of, a single shot in an empty pack just to demonstrate the ejection difference between the two. A little bit quicker on the one on the right, and you can hear the difference in terms of sound. Let's do it at the same time. Hear the difference there? So the one on the left here takes, I don't think quite twice as long, but nearly twice as long to eject. But in doing so is probably putting about half the stress on the cogs in the gear train. So, what's the point of this video? I don't know really. I just wanted to let you guys know that I had found a new motor substitute. Especially in the case of the PolaVolt conversions where I'm going to be running these things off of lithium-ion batteries anyway. I will probably just stick with the 16140 motors because I think having a motor that is slightly quieter and putting less stress on the cogs is probably good for the longevity of the camera. And you guys know me by now, I like to do things once and then have that camera last as long as it possibly can. I like to refurbish things and then hopefully never have to see them again. So I think that the slower motor is probably a slightly safer option, but I probably will stock a few of the faster ones on the off chance that someone wants to go balls to the walls crazy and have a 20,000 RPM SX-70. It does sound pretty cool, I'll give you that. Anyway, that's about it. If you would like your SX-70 refurbished and maybe its motor upgraded while I'm inside, feel free to get in contact using any of the links below. I am across social media as the Instant Camera Guy. I'm pretty easy to find. And yeah, if you want me to fully overhaul, rebuild your camera, upgrade it to SX-70R PCB or the PolaVolt battery conversion, then feel free to get in touch. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.